Welcome to Khullome. Khullome is Luya for Let's Talk. And this entire space is an invitation to have a conversation around sexuality and identity from a biblical perspective. What is biblical sexuality? What is biblical identity? How does it interact with culture? This is what we talk about around here. So if that's interesting to you, stick around and let's do this. Okay, so gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is the belief that you were born in the wrong body. So your physical body doesn't align with what your brain is processing. So what you believe you are is not what you actually are. So I'm a woman. If I'm a woman, then I think that I'm a man inside my head. And it's characterized with there's honestly a lot of depression, a lot of debilitating anxiety for many people who are struggling with it. It's not an easy thing. And one thing that I would like to communicate is, especially within the African community, we have to stop dismissing things because we don't understand them. This is something, like, honestly, if your kid came and told you that, you'd just be like, you know what? That's nonsense. All right, get over it, or man up, or woman up, whatever it is. But it's important for us to understand where something like that would be coming from, and what it means for our children, what it means for us, how we can help young people who are going through things like this in a biblical way. Okay, so the goal is not let's just embrace everything the world is telling us because we don't understand, we're just going to do it that way. No, we have to do things biblically. Okay, and just because somebody who seems like a professional is telling you something doesn't make it right, doesn't make it gospel. Okay, so one thing that we can do is educate ourselves on maybe what gender dysphoria is, and some of the reasons it can come about. One of the main issues I have with how we're dealing with this, and even in the psychological community, what people are now being told is a treatment for this dysphoria, is acceptance. And the truth is that acceptance is not treatment. When you guys have engaged with the issue of transgenderism, what are your thoughts? What are the things that have come to mind? Have you ever reacted in an unloving way? And what is that way? Because remember, we talked about love and truth. And truth is not unloving, but the way we say something can be unloving. So we have to be careful and focus. See the person who's going through it, see the person who might be suffering. Because there are some situations in the whole transgender arena where you're like, okay, that's not the thing. There are many people who don't have dysphoria. They don't have gender dysphoria, but they identify as trans because they're like, oh, I'm non-binary or something like that. But they're not, like, their mind and their bodies are just in line, but they are identifying in different ways. And we have to be able to tell the difference between people who are struggling with the mental condition that is gender dysphoria and people who identify as transgender, because they're not necessarily the same thing all of the time. Okay, so as you are seeing these things, and you see them, I'm sure you have seen them on TV, on social media, all around. There are so many influencers, there's so many things going on. As you engage with those ideas in truth, and then bring it right back down to scripture. What does the Bible tell me? Who does God say I am? What does God call me to do? Because just because God has called us to do it doesn't mean that it's going to be easy to do it. Doesn't mean that sometimes we are not fraught with pain and fear and anxiety. All right, but God is greater than all of that. We don't do this in our own strength. We do it in His. So trust God, believe in His word, and move forward in faith. because he's the one who gives us the ability to stand. Even when you're feeling like you're alone, you're feeling like the depression and the darkness is so much, God is more than able to get you through it. All right? It's not necessarily the thing that we want, which is just getting past it. It's like I want to wake up in the morning and it's gone. We all have different things that we struggle with, different things that we find hard to deal with. But God has never left you, and he won't. Trust him. More than yourself, more than the noise, trust him. All right, I think in the last few videos, I've talked about defining terms. It's important to define our terms. Why? Because when we are talking about gender, and actually these days, when you're talking about things in the sexuality realm, we might be talking about the same thing, but we're not talking about the same thing. So when I say, like, one of the first questions you should be able to ask, if you meet with people who are like, I'm transgender or anything like that, ask them, what do you mean by that? Yes. And then ask them, what is a woman? What is a man? Because my definition of woman is what it has always been, which is, adult female. That's my definition. That's the definition that I'm working with. Someone else might not be working with your definition. Someone else might not even be able to define what being a woman is, because it's like, okay, if I'm a man trapped in a woman's body, what does it mean to be a man? What am I saying? What is that feeling that I'm saying is manness that is inside of me, that I just know is being a man? What is that? What does it mean? And what does God tell me? Who does God say I am? Because at the end of the day, who God says you are is more important than who I think I am and who I believe I am and what my feelings are telling me that I am and my heart is telling me that I am. I am God's child. I belong to him. All right. And so when we're talking about definitions, it's really, really important to think about authority, the definitions themselves, and identity, and how these three things are linked. Yeah. It's important to define our terms because our definitions help shape our identity. Because many of us want to be kind and loving and good and gracious to people. You don't want to hurt people's feelings. All right. But at the same time, and so my definition of good is what determines what is good, right? What I consider to be good, and therefore how I will act. Because I want to be known as a good person. I want to be known as a loving person. So what is my definition of love? And what many times we are not thinking about is, where do these definitions come from? Which is where authority comes in. So our authority gives us our definitions, which leads us to form our identity. Yeah, for many, many of us. So for me as a believer, my authority is God. The scriptures, he has revealed himself to us in the scriptures. And so whatever I think about myself, whenever I'm thinking about who I am and what I'm here for, I'm here to honor God. And so everything in my life is subject to him. I answer to him and no one else. Okay. Then God has put different authority figures in my life, but he is the ultimate figure of authority. So that if I went to my church and my pastor is preaching something contrary to the Bible, even though he is in a position of authority, he must be then submitted to God. That's how he remains my authority, submitted unto God. If he's preaching the opposite of the Bible, then maybe I need to move from there. And we do that prayerfully. Okay, so my main point is just that as we're thinking about what does it actually mean? What does gender mean? What does female mean and male? And all of these terms that we'll be dealing with in the next video. What does it actually mean? Ask yourself, who is the authority? Who is giving you this definition? Do they have an ulterior motive? Is there something else happening behind the scenes? We have to ask these questions, not because we intrinsically think there's always some sort of scheme, but because we know it. We live in this world. The devil is a liar, guys. All right. So we need to engage with our surroundings and our culture in love and grace, but also in truth. We are called to speak the truth, even when it's painful, even when it costs you everything. You speak the truth because, again, God is our authority. I answer to him. So people might not like what I have to say. People might not accept what I have to say. People might be very nasty about what I have to say, but it doesn't change it. It doesn't change the truth. All right? So. That's today's video. I'll see you on the next one.